This is Gyokuyou, and this is the story of her sweetest revenge. She didn't plan for it, she didn't chase it, but power has a funny way of dragging old problems back to the surface, and sometimes they just don't realize what they're dealing with. When Momo is first introduced to Gyokuyou's inner circle in episode 2, something suddenly feels off. Excluding Momo herself, Gyokuyou only has 4 ladies-in-waiting. That's an absurdly small number for a high-ranking consort, especially one widely rumored to be the emperor's favorite. Just look at Liyue's entourage or lowlands. That's like a football match lineup. So why does Gyokuyou have so few people around her? Part of the answer is simple. Gyokuyou is a careful person. She hesitates to trust people she doesn't know. She doesn't bring others close easily. But there's one more practical reason aside from that. Her request was rejected multiple times. And the biggest reason for that was none other than her own brother, Gyoku-ou. We're introduced to Gyoku-ou more clearly later in the novel, Volume 9. But not through Gyokuyou's eyes, but through someone else's. Meet Rikuson. This guy. He's actually in the anime. At one point, Rikuson was Lakan's right-hand man. He was later sent to work under Gyoku-ou in the western capital. Gyoku-ou was acting as a governor at that time, since Gyoku-wen was heading to the central capital. From the start, Rikuson respected Gyoku-ou, but he also feared him. Gyoku-ou was Gyoku-wen's eldest son. From childhood, he carried a certain aura, ambition without restraints. Among all his siblings, he alone wanted more: power, status, recognition. He received an education befitting the son of a powerful man, and he carried himself like someone who fully believed he was meant for something bigger. Tall, broad, dark-bearded, built more like a warrior than a governor, even in his 40s, but also with great interpersonal skill. His words were polite, his tone warm, but underneath that warmth was conviction, authority, and just a hint of condescension. Always light enough to be dismissed as a joke. A charming combination, to say the least. But yet Rikuson also noticed something else. Gyoku-ou was loved. He was supported by the people. He could laugh with his soldier. He spoke like someone who shared their frustrations, while never losing his position of power. To Rikuson, while looking at Gyoku-ou, the world felt divided into 2 kinds of people: protagonists and everyone else. Gyoku-ou clearly was the main character. So when Gyokuyou finally became empress and Gyoku-ou sent her a letter, Gyokuyou understood immediately that her war wasn't over. And it was like a reopening of a healing wound, a dangerous wound at that. So it's Gyokuyou against a respected acting governor of Issei province. But this is probably a good place to stop glazing him. Of course, not because I love Gyokuyou more, but because, borrowing Jujutsu Kaisen's meme language, Gyoku-ou was a fraud. We were introduced to Gyoku-ou for the first time in the novel Volume 8, indirectly, through a letter. So after Gyokuyou became empress, Gyoku-ou sent her a letter. It was a rather sudden and unexpected, since Gyokuyou and Gyoku-ou's relationship is just bad. And inside that letter was an announcement. So he intended to send his 16-year-old daughter to the inner court, which is whatever. But what made it unsettling was the portrait attached to the letter. It's a portrait of a girl with red hair, green eyes, just like Gyokuyou. There are 2 problems here. 1, Gyokuyou didn't even know her brother had a daughter that age. And 2, reading that letter, it's really hard not to think the same thing Gyokuyou probably did. Is this an insult? It's as if to say, hey, you think you're it, huh? Well, let me introduce you to my daughter. Please introduce him to the prince and goodbye. How is that not an insult? But the truly wild part is that Gyoku-ou seemed to think this was acceptable, that provoking the empress directly would carry 0 cost. And this behavior pattern repeated multiple times throughout the story. The novel used some words repeatedly to describe Gyoku-ou: a doer, competent, charismatic, will do anything for the western capital. but also another word that I think sums Gyoku-ou really nicely. Warped. Gyoku-ou, the acting governor of Ise province, apparently has an unhealthy obsession with the title eldest brother and his connection with his father. He would do anything, and I mean anything, to calm his complex around it. And as you might have guessed, it warped his personality badly. Deeply narcissistic. And in the novel Volume 11, he wanted war against Shao, a neutral country, right when his territory was recovering from a swarm disaster. But none of that is what actually destroyed him. Some even worked in his favor. What destroyed him was arrogance. Unrestrained, unexamined arrogance placed to the wrong people. There are three people he underestimated catastrophically. First is, of course, Gyokuyou. As you know from the letter story I told you earlier. Well, I guess he never updates his image of her, because to him, she's probably still the quiet sister he can represent anytime, not the empress who actually learned how to survive the inner court. And second, Jinshi. Oh, my poor boy Jinshi. So, Gyoku-ou's plan was to utterly dupe and use Jinshi to the bone. Use this naive princeling to start a war. And he totally believed he could do that. That's because Gyoku-ou treated him like an upstart. Jinshi's young, 21 at that time, newly visible, formerly hidden behind a eunuch disguise. Of course, he's impressive to look at, but not to take seriously. I mean, what's to fear from someone who dealt with the emperor's concubines? And finally, his most fatal mistake of all, his own father, Gyoku-en. Because apparently in the past, when Gyoku-ou massacred the Yi clan, Gyoku-en still protected him, which from my understanding of the novel, it's because of guilt. Gyoku-ou internalized a simple belief that no matter what he did, his father would cover for him. But if we're talking about Gyoku-ou, it doesn't stop there. Because even those positive words I used to describe him earlier, a doer, competent, the more you look at it, the more questionable it becomes. Most of his power still came from Gyoku-en. Gyoku-en was highly well regarded in the western capital. In terms of power, no one came close to Gyoku-en. Also, his siblings, they complied with him, except Gyokuyou of course, because their hands were tied. Gyoku-ou was the main heir, and, to no one's surprise, they were lied to. And all that farce of him outplaying Jinshi in Volume 11, it all happened inside the western capital, his home turf, when Jinshi's supporters were minimal. It's as if he's a leech that can't grow, can't do anything without being a nuisance or stealing others' power. And as a result of that, he made tons of enemies. Coupled with his arrogance, his downfall was getting close. And ironically, from people he underestimated. While Gyokuyou was busy with theatrics, posturing, and testing how far he could push people, something was happening in the background. People were watching. Important people. So long before Gyoku-ou's final collapse, Gyoku-en had already prepared a contingency. He just needed an executor for it, and he had someone perfect for that. Back when Gyoku-ou wiped out the Yi clan, there were survivors, and with survivors, there's always resentment. So Gyoku-en made an arrangement with one of them behind the scenes. If Gyoku-ou ever crossed a line he couldn't come back from, that survivor would eliminate him, and then protect the western capital. That survivor was Rikuson, the same man I mentioned earlier. But even then, there was one final condition, and this is where Gyokuyou came in. So Rikuson updated her and waiting for her answer. In the novel, it was explained that Gyokuyou and Gyoku-ou had one key similarity. They both tried to live up their father's ideals. Maybe that's why Gyokuyou still had some respect for his elder brother. But it's easy to see how different both of them become, and one of them, quite literally, can decide the other person's fate. So this is a sweet, sweet revenge of outgrowing idiots. And this is where I think generic mainstream fiction often gets it wrong. Look, some people love the idea of functional narcissist, charming tyrant, brilliant sociopath. Some enjoy it because, well, it makes an entertaining story. I am one of them. I think Gyoku-ou is a really cool and entertaining villain. But some people also see it as quote-unquote encouragement. Just be narcissist, they said. It would bring success, they said. Rather gullible if you ask me, because again and again, psychological research shows the opposite. These traits, they tend to show up when intelligence and competence is lacking. It's as if they compensate for skill issue. It's as if without leeching, there's nothing underneath. And that's the truth. Without sugarcoating, without blatantly choosing outliers as an example, it's a game for idiots. And Gyoku-ou is a textbook example of how these people collapse. It only took 3 written words from Gyokuyou to decide Gyoku-ou's end. So, to Riku-san, she simply wrote back, "As you will." And that was the end. Just consequences catching up.